Hi everybody, welcome to the CELTMAN 2021 race briefing. Bit unusual this year for fairly obvious reasons that we don't need to go into, but we will do at various points during the briefing. We've got in this call today, we've got Stuart, we've got John, and we've got myself. I'm Paul. So we're going to take you through the race briefing. We're going to use pretty much the same format we would normally if we were doing this for real. We won't have the opportunity for questions and answers, but you can fire those through if needs be by email after this, after you've seen this briefing. But please do check the race briefing first. There's a pretty good chance that the question that you need to ask is asked in there, and we don't need to go through that process all over again. It's going to be a really unusual year. So thanks for being with us. First off, thanks for your support. It means a huge amount. We're desperate to get this event up and running again. We're desperate to make CELTMAN happen, and your support is hugely appreciated. In some ways, you guys are going to be the pioneers all over again. We cast our minds back to the first year of CELTMAN in 2012, and those people that came to that race were the pioneers. Some of them are still with us. Some of them will probably be with us this year. In a funny way, you guys are pioneers again, because this is going to be quite a different race. There's going to be things that are different, things that are altered, changes that are made. And we'll look back on this one and think in a few years' time, and there'll be a story of this race, and you're part of that story. So the first thing we want to show is a public service announcement. This is incredibly important information. You need to watch the video that's coming up for the next minute or so. You are definitely going to encounter the famous Scottish Highland midgie at some point during race weekend. Don't forget, they're going to be doubly hungry this year. They didn't get to feast on human flesh last year. You're all getting it twice as bad this year. Come prepared with your midgenets and sprays and creams and anything that might work. Suit of armour? Possibly. But if they get inside that, we're in trouble. So, we'll do some quick introductions. So we have in this call me, I'm Paul McGreal, I'm the race director. We have Stuart, who is the commercial director. We have John, who is the crew director, looks after all things to do with our amazing crew. Not in this call, but really important to this race are Hannah, who looks after logistics and helps John on crew, and Diane, who looks after race coordination and various other kind of jobs that we just drop on her, basically. We also have incredible support from our safety and volunteer teams. They're here to help make your weekend enjoyable and safe. We just couldn't do it without them. So we have approximately 40 volunteers who've given up their weekend so you can race. They're amazing, they're incredible. We couldn't do it without them. But we also have Torridon Mountain Rescue Team will be up on the hill. We have water safety teams, we have paddlers, we have safety boats, we have a first aid. There are a huge number of people involved in this race, and they're all fantastic. We also couldn't deliver this race without our amazing sponsors. They're really, really important to us. And if you have an opportunity, we'd love you to support them in return. They support us, let's support them. So there we go. One Part Carbon and Cervelo on board new this year. Oakley, Land Rover, John Clark Motor Group, Orca, and Stuart Brewing.
And Event Scotland.
Event Scotland. Thank you,
Let's
Stu.
not forget them. So over to you, John.
Yeah, so Paul's already mentioned this is a different year, and coronavirus has affected everybody in various different ways, and some in very sad ways. And it's important that we try to make sure that we don't affect people badly whilst we're racing. So what we're asking for you is to keep us safe, keep the race safe, and keep each other safe. So if we ask you to keep 2 meters apart, then there's a reason for that. And it's just to support what's been done already over the last year and a half of a very difficult period. So what we need you to do, and we'd like you to do immediately, read it and understand our code of conduct and complete the health declaration. So that was sent out to you by email. So we'll try and remind you all the way through that it is important to take these things seriously. Crucially, if you feel ill or any of your party feel ill and they're showing symptoms that would be classed as COVID symptoms, please do not travel. Call us, talk to us, email us, whatever way you can get in touch with us and tell us what the situation is, and we'll try to be as helpful as we can around it. But we really can't bring a COVID situation into an area which is very vulnerable people. We also suggest that you collect and do some lateral flow tests. It's not showing up on my picture there. I've got my test, I've just done it this morning, been sitting waiting for it to come up, and I'm showing one line which says I am negative, so that's good. But
you're generally quite positive and cheery, John. I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, it's difficult that way, isn't it? Put double negatives and double positives all over the place. But we're really just asking you to follow the good common sense stuff that you've been doing for the last year and a half. Wash your hands, use sanitizers where you feel it's necessary. And you obviously, if you're out in the wilds, you're not going to be able to wash your hands very easily, but you carry a little bit of sanitizer with you, that's not a bad thing. And that should be us in a COVID secure way if we can.
Cool, thanks, John. Okay, so updates to timetable. I'm not going to go through this in detail. This is all in the race manual. It's based on the race manual. Just wanted to highlight the couple of changes here. Clearly the mandatory briefings have gone because we can't put you all in the space in the hall. Those of you who've been to one of those briefings will understand why. It's pretty kind of rammed in there. So this is the alternative. However, it is possible that we will need to make last minute changes. Weather dependent is an obvious one. So what we're asking is, whilst the mandatory briefing is gone, do keep your eyes on our Facebook page on the Friday night before you go to bed. Just double check in case we've had to make any last minute announcement or change. It's possible we may have to adopt a contingency course or something like that. So just keep your eye on that in the absence of us being able to do this for real. The other major change is around the post-race buffet. We'll come on to that a bit later on. But essentially the headline there is, for capacity reasons, we're only going to be able to give buffet food tickets to each athlete and their their nominated support person. So we won't be able to sell additional tickets. You'll need to make arrangements for friends, family, spectators, etc. that are not with, that are outside the hall. And obviously, and extremely sadly, because it's an amazing thing, a beautiful thing, we can't do the party this year. Folks getting up close, sweaty and hugging and all the rest of it is a no-no for fairly obvious reasons. That's the revised timetable. GPS tracking will happen again this year. The link will be published on the event website in the next few days, certainly before race time. We encourage your friends and family to spectate that way. They'll be able to follow your progress around the course. Weather forecast, we're recording this about 10 days out, so we can't tell you what the weather's going to be like on race day. This is actually an example. This is what it looked like in 2019. When we did the briefing then. We will try and post details either on the CELTMAN Facebook page or on the CELTMAN Forum Facebook page of weather forecasts as we get closer in. If you want to check yourself, the two that I think are probably most important and the most useful are XC Weather and the Mountain Weather Information Service, because clearly Most forecasts deal with kind of ground level, sea level, effectively, whereas we're going high. And the weather, as most of you will know, in this part of the world, in the Western Highlands, can be very, very different on the top of hills as opposed to sea level. So those two forecasting systems are probably useful to you. Okay. Very quick run through a couple of housekeeping basics. Buffet tickets and the buffet COVID plan. As I mentioned earlier on, buffet tickets will only be for athletes plus one designated supporter. We can't do the usual thing where we sell additional food tickets. That just won't be able to happen. So you'll need to make sure that you make arrangements, if necessary, beforehand for your friends, family, spectators. Bear in mind that hospitality options in the area are a bit more limited than they might normally be, and you'll probably need to book tables in advance. So if you want to use the pubs and restaurants, probably best not just to show up on spec. You might be disappointed. We're not doing the Gairloch Old Inn breakfast stop this year, again, COVID reasons. So just keep on going through Gairloch. Or there may well be other options in Gairloch open at that time of day. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Timing chips and timing points. We're going to use the Sport Ident dibber system. So you will physically need to dib in at each of the points. The points are, on this occasion, swim start. We'll come back onto that. Transition 1 in, transition 1 out. Transition 2. Transition 2A, that's the high-low checkpoint, and then the finish line. And at each of those points, the dibber that you will have on your wrist, you insert into a box, it beeps, and we're all good. We'll be cleaning those, just so you're kind of happy with what we're doing, we'll be cleaning those boxes down as a common contact point. We'll be cleaning them down regularly during the day. GPS trackers, we will issue you with a GPS tracker on race day morning. You'll pick that up from the church hall. Carry that with you, but only from transition 1 onwards. Don't take it in the water with you, it'll break. So that needs to be with your bike in transition 1, and then you're carrying it from there on in. Remember to transfer it when you move from bike to run. And again, if you're changing kit in any way between kind of the first half of the run course and the second half of the run course, make sure, this is probably a job for your support team because they'll be the ones that are a bit more alert, make sure the tracker moves with the athlete. We really need it, and it's especially important in the second part of the run course where it's primarily a safety device. We need to, and we want to know exactly where you all are at all times. We'll take the GPS tracker back off you at the finish line. Medical help. We will have our own medical team on board, Avium. Mountain rescue team will be up on the hill. The health centre, the local health centre is next door to the Torridon Hall. And then Raigmore in Inverness is the nearest large hospital. Sunday brunch overview. Stu will cover this later on.
Okay, so process for registration. It's going to be different again this year. We're going to keep saying that, aren't we? Stop saying it gets boring, but it is necessary. So it'll be very much a one-way system. So the kit check will happen outside. We will have a number of tables, and we'll ask you to remove your kit from the bag that you have it in, show us it all, and put it back in again. We'll do that check, but we will not be touching anything. So we'll be maintaining a distance from you, and you will show us your kit and identify each piece. So that will be part of the kit check. And remember, the mandatory kit is mandatory. There isn't any choice in any of it. So we'll make sure that you do bring the right stuff. Registration process will then happen within the hall. So you'll go in the door that you're identified to go in. That will be the entrance door. We'll show you where it is. You'll collect a pack from registration, and you'll collect a supporter's t-shirt.
Can I just add, John, that obviously people know this normally because they're there, but the nearest outdoor shop to Torridon is at least an hour and a half's drive away. So don't think you can pick some stuff up later. You can't.
Yeah, and we won't have the option to have a pile of stuff to sell you that fits the needs because of the limitations in terms of what we can and can't do. Although we will have a shop with some swag for you to purchase, but we'd like you to do that by pre-order if at all possible. So put your pre-orders in now. It's on the website. It will show you what's in the shop, what's available, and what you can collect from us on the day. And we'll have the parcel ready with your name on it, and you just need to pick it up. Again, that just eases the amount of space that we need and the amount of time that we need to spend with you. So, and then we'd ask you to exit the hall to allow us to keep that flow moving. So that will be the process.
Okay, and we will issue you with a number of stickers and your race bib and some race information. You'll be given stickers for your vehicle. This is to identify which athlete number is with which vehicle. So this diagram here shows you the position of the stickers. Please adhere to this. The one on the front windscreen should go on the passenger side at the top. Do not put it in the middle, because most cars now have cameras and sensors there, and you'll cause all sorts of chaos. And the rear one on the bottom left of the window. This year, we also have a new system. Those of you who've been to CELTMAN before will know that the traffic for us sometimes, actually always, is an issue around about Transition 2 and Transition 2A. And Transition 2A has become a bottleneck for us now. And if we don't fix this problem, then effectively we have no race. So we need you all to adhere to the new rules that we have. Don't think that you're special and you can circumnavigate them. You can't. You need to follow the new parking rules. All the details are in the race manual, but effectively, you're not allowed to park at T2A, which is the mountain safety checkpoint, where you pick up your support runner. You'll be allowed to stop there for 2 minutes to drop off the support runner and drop off the kit. If you have more than one driver in the car, if you have a runner and driver. If you only have a driver who is also your runner, you're effectively a single crew. That means that you can't leave the car at T2A and go up the mountain. So you need to tell us at registration if you're a single crewed athlete and supporter. We will give you a special sticker. That sticker goes on the front of the car. And then when you arrive at T2A, you're allowed to park 2 kilometers further on at T2B. We have the whole car park for the race this year. So you will be allowed to park in that car park only if you have a single crew sticker. If you tell us you have a single crew and we allocate a sticker and you're not a single crew and we find you parked illegally effectively, there will be a penalty for that. So please adhere to this rule. I know I sound very serious and I'm not very serious, but this is it's very, very important that you adhere to
Get a telling off from Stu and
you'll get a telling off from me, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the penalty.
And the other part of that is that the crew who are working on that space, the team, our team of volunteers are volunteers, and their job is difficult enough. So if they get into some form of you arguing with them over the point of being able to park or not park, that's not very fair on them. So please just follow that rule correctly.
Yeah. Effectively, the point of this is to remove all traffic from the roadside at T2A to prevent a bottleneck. That's what we're trying to do. So rules on the cycling course. The usual rules, common sense rules, but this is a no drafting race, so please do not draft. We do not allow car pacing, hand ups or tailing. You have a support vehicle with you, but not beside you. You need to agree preset support points with your support crew. So that may be 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers. You pre-arrange that and arrange to meet them at those points. It requires a little bit of planning, but that's part of the fun of the race. But they cannot hand products to you, food to you, drinks to you as they pass by. And you must not drive behind the athlete or in front of the athlete with hazards on. That's not allowed. Any litter on the course is an instant disqualification. CELTMAN's in an area of incredible natural beauty. And we need to be very, very aware of the local conditions and environment and do not drop even a single gel wrapper. It's an instant disqualification offence. Rules of the road are standard. You must abide by the UK road traffic laws. Laybys, you should stop in on the left-hand side only. In fact, you should only stop on the left-hand side of the road to give support, and you should move the vehicle completely off the road to give support. Do not stop in passing places and use passing places properly. We'll send you an email with a link to a video, remind myself to do that, which explains how to use passing places if you're not sure. But actually, as 99% of you are from Britain this year, you should be all right.
Stu, do you want to just mention here, because I know you love a bit of dirty talk, do you want to talk about folks relieving themselves, shall we say?
Yes, we do provide toilets around the course, but we understand that nature calls in all sorts of places. Just be very, very aware of how you go about that. Be discreet if you have to, and certainly do not defecate on a farmer's doorstep, because farmers all have guns.
Would you like me to do the aero position?
No, thanks, no. Paul. No. No, and in fact, you should never have seen that, and that kind of proves the point. Yeah, please be discreet about how you have to go about your business if you have to, or use our toilet positions where possible. Race number positions on the bike, we'll explain that to you at registration, and support vehicle passes. See next slide has now been moved to the previous slide, so we don't need to worry about that. And this guy, he's the judge. He might look familiar to you. RTFM, I'll let you Google that. Now, we have a number of film crews on the course, as always, so please be aware of them. They may be filming from cars. They are allowed to film from cars. You are not allowed to film from cars. It is not allowed for a crew to film their own athlete out of a car. However, we have some film crews who are permitted to do so. They will have a media sticker on their car. The drones will be operating, and our drone operators always say, if they shout at you, please pay attention, because they might be telling you a drone's going to fall on your head. They're probably not telling you that, but please do what the drone operator asks you to do. Paul.
Cut-offs. Yay, everyone loves a cut-off discussion. These are all in the manual. Please study them. I'm not going to go into great detail here. It's all detailed there. Probably the only thing to draw attention to is we're going to talk about swim start in a moment. We have slightly different arrangements there. You're not all going to start at the same time. So the way the cut-offs will work, because you're not all starting at the same time, is that whatever the time of the last person starting is, which might be maybe instead of 5 o'clock, it might be 5:06, something like that. That will then be the reference time for the cut-offs for the rest of the day. So for example, if we do get the last person away at 5:06, the cut-off time for the high course will not be 4 p.m, it will be 4:06 p.m. So we'll keep a note of all that and we'll manage that. You don't need to think about it. You just need to think about racing and hitting those cut-offs in kind of absolute terms. So the cut-off will be 11 hours. Boom. So study those cut-offs. They're in the manual. I don't think we need to particularly go through them in detail now. The one that is a little bit more kind of vague is a kind of a soft, it's kind of a softer one, but it's there for a good reason. And this one from T2A. So if you're on the high routes, one from T2A to the top of, to where you reach the ridge, you kind of climb out of the quarry and you hit the ridge. We need you to do that in 1:45. The reason for that is if it's taking you kind of that length or much longer than that, then you're probably not in great shape. And that's the point. It's the safest place to send you back down again, basically. Any further along the ridge, and there's no viable escape route. So it's there for your safety. So that'll be managed by Mountain Rescue. If that happens, you just have to come back down again, and we take it from there. Pre-race, so this is now bright and breezy on Saturday morning. There's a couple of bits and pieces you and your support team will need to do, even though it is 3 o'clock in the morning. So come into the village from the south end only. Don't try and come in from the north end. We'll have closed the road by then anyway, so you won't be able to get down to the kind of the transition area from the north end of the village. So you need to approach from the south end. That's the Applecross side. For those of you who work in those kind of terms. So approach from that side. You'll meet our amazing team of marshals who will direct you to park. Please stay quiet. It will be 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning in Shieldaig. Lots of Shieldaig will be either us or awake anyway, but let's not take the piss. Let's be nice and quiet as far as we possibly can. Collect your dibber and your GPS device. That will be up at the church hall in Shieldaig, which is at the north end of the village. It's just at the far end of transition, if you like. There's a little hall there, and that's where your GPS tracker and your dibber will be. There will be bike racking in transition 1. It will run down the centre of the street, and that's why we've closed the street. It will be numbered slots, so please rack in your number. Please also, because this will really help us with the social distancing, please rack on alternate sides. So it will be odd numbers on one side, even numbers on the other side, and that will help us give a bit more distance further down. It also means you've got more space for your transition, so it's in your interest to do it as well. The coach pickup is at 4 o'clock and is at the top of the new slipway. You can see the location on the diagram there. Those buses, those coaches will leave at 4 o'clock. If you're not on them, it's race over. So you have to be on those coaches at 4 o'clock. They will leave at that point. And please don't, supporters and support crews and spectators, please don't come to the start. The road is tiny. It goes up and down a lot. We've got coaches on it. We've got our own kind of event vehicles that need to be on that road. There's nowhere for you to park at the other end when you get there. It's literally a field full of athletes and sheep shit. So please don't come to the start. Stay in Shieldaig and meet your athlete as they come out of the swim section.
Okay, so for each bus, we've got a maximum of 40 people. That is to allow us to keep some space. So please go onto the bus, and as you're going on the bus, we will provide you with a face mask or a face covering. So if you can wear that during the time you're on the bus, and as you come off, we'll have a bin for you to put them in. So please drop that off. Every year we say to people, please don't bring very much stuff with you. So bring what you need, but make sure that's an absolute minimum. So the drop bag should be the size of no bigger than a carrier bag. So we would recommend that you don't bring anything, but people will still bring something. So as little amount of stuff as possible that would fit in a normal size carrier bag is kind of where we need you to be, because we have a limitation on how much stuff we can bring back.
Yeah, so no dry robes, because 175 dry robes don't fit in the back of a van, however hard you try.
You shouldn't really need anything. I mean, you're off the bus and into the field, and everyone loves the feeling of nettles and sheep shit between their toes. So you shouldn't really need to bring anything. But we realise that some people want to, but please, keep it to a minimum.
And we ask this every year, so we're asking you super hard this year because Stuart likes us to use the word super
I hate
occasions. So super, super hard. Please bring it as little stuff as possible. As you come off the bus, we'll have a bin bag for you to put the face covering in, and then you can move into the field, but try and maintain as much social distancing as possible. It's a big wide field, and there is space for everybody. We know that everybody wants to have a chat, but do that from a distance. It's still possible. And toilets are in the field. You'll be able to use them as well. But again, use the sanitizers that are with them as you leave.
Okay.
Swim course. So this is me, isn't it? It's a swim course. Stu, do you want to talk about photo procedure before I kick off on swim?
Yeah, I think just the famous photo that you've all seen of everybody in front of the burning logo, we will try and do that, but obviously we can't do it in its normal form. So there's going to be a little bit of choreography as we put you in a more spaced area. And then we need to find someone with a huge wide angle lens to take the photo. But we're working on that. So just be aware that it's going to take a little bit longer to facilitate that and to get everything together. So try and pay attention to to me on the loudhailer generally, if you can, please.
Great, cheers. So swim start procedure, this will change a little bit. So after the photograph, we're going to put you in the water. In a normal year, that's a deep water start. We put you all in, deep water start, air horn, off you go. For COVID reasons, particularly kind of around the way that the guidance works in Scotland, that's not possible this year. So we're going to do a form of time trial start. What we'll ask you to do is form 3 queues leaving the start field. Doesn't matter what order. In fact, we would prefer that if that was not in race order. A randomized order is the perfect solution for us, because that helps us spread the load a little bit better once we get into T1 as well. So 3 queues. When you get to the head of the queue, you'll start. And we're planning to try and get those 3 people away every 6 seconds. So we'll get through you if you're in 3 queues in 6 or 7 minutes. It'll all be a pretty quick process. So you need to be in those queues. Those queues need to be socially distanced, 2 meters apart, please. But put yourself in a queue and we will just start you. There will be, because we need to record your start time, this is where this additional dibber point will come in. So you will dib as you leave the shore. So you'll dib to start the clock for you personally. So it's effectively a chip time start process. So we record your time. We'll be there on hand to explain all that and keep you right on the day. So don't worry about it. But just there's that extra step in the process. Once you're in the water, everything will be as normal as it usually is, which is cold. It will be cold. We expect the race to be between 11 and 13 degrees. That was a slip of the tongue, wasn't it? I think I almost gave the game away there. Do you reckon? 11 to 13, it is actually sometimes colder in the middle of the course where it gets really deep. There's also a decent chance that you're going to encounter jellyfish, the famous CELTMAN jellyfish, who've mutated to include our logo, as you may have seen in photographs. Tide conditions, I think, this year are slightly with us. The tide will slightly push you into the shore, into the finish line, but I wouldn't, it's not going to be a strong effect. You're flat water. Think of it as flat water and you'll be fine. Booties and gloves that are non-webbed are okay, as in line with Triathlon Scotland rules. Bag drop, we've talked to you about bag drop. Please bring the smallest and preferably no amount of kit that you can. Hazards and risks, there are some. It's cold, so think carefully about what you're wearing. Wetsuits are clearly compulsory. Many people also opt for neoprene hoods, for rash vests underneath, etc., etc. That's all fine by us. Do whatever you feel you need to do to stay as comfortable as you possibly can be.
And to be honest, sorry, Paul, I think in the CELTMAN forum, there's been lots and lots of chat about different pieces of kit that people have tried and works. So it's worth referring to that anyway, just to see what people have been using.
Yeah, it's a good chat. There's a great body of knowledge sat there in the CELTMAN forum that's available to everybody to tap into. That's great. One of the other risks is Shield Egg Island. It gets rocky off the point that you swim round. So you can't cut that quite as fine as you might think you can. Just watch out for the rocks there. And then once you actually get to the swim exit, the cobbled slipway, it's again, you're transitioning from a rocky seabed onto this old cobbled slipway, and it's rough. We'll put some swim mats out, but there's still roughness to that. It's still essentially an old, a knackered old slipway, basically. One of the key features of the CELTMAN course is that you can't see, from the point you start when you get in the water, you can't see the swim exit. It's a proper journey. There will be a lead kayaker, so there'll be something to follow. And after the first 10 or 15 minutes, you start to turn towards Shield Egg and you can see a large white house. It's the furthest most left white house. And that's a really good sighting point. You can see that from a long way out, from perhaps 3K out, you can see that house. So aim for that. That's your sighting point. And then as you round Shield Egg Island, you'll see the exit point. There'll be the CELTMAN Blue Arch will be up on that. There'll be fire cans at the top of it. So you should be able to spot that. But the kayakers will also be keeping you straight as well. In terms of kayakers and safety arrangements, we've got lots of kayakers, we've got lots of safety boats on the course. They're there to assist you should you need them. If you find yourself in distress, the normal rules apply. If you lie on your back, you'll float because you're in a wetsuit. Draw attention to yourself, shout, wave around, do whatever you need to do. A kayaker will come to you, then follow their instructions. They'll probably want you to hang on to the front of the boat. But some of them prefer the back, so follow their instructions and we'll take it from there. If we need to extract you from the course, they will call in the assistance of one of the motorized boats, and that process will then kick in. Clearly, we don't want swimmers and boats, motorized boats, in the same place. So the kayakers in that situation, kayakers will manage it. So if you're swimming along quite happily and suddenly you find you're bashing into the side of a kayak, or someone's shouting at you or smacking you on the head with a paddle, heads up, listen up, and follow those instructions. That'll be there for your safety. If we get a serious incident and we need to kind of do evacuation of the course, we have the facilities to do that in terms of kayakers and boats. Again, the kayakers will lead on that. So if you hear instructions, your way is impeded, heads up, listen up, follow instructions, and take it from there. The cutoffs for the swim course we enforce. So as we're approaching cutoff time, if you're still in the water and a long way out, we will probably pick you up and put you on a boat and bring you to the new slipway. That's the evacuation point. And the reason is it's cold. We don't want you in there for any longer than 2 hours. So that is a cutoff we will enforce on the water. Okay, I think that's it. That is the swim course. So as I say, that kind of slight curvature, it starts on the left, finishes on the right. And that curvature and the islands in the way mean you can't see the swim exit. The White House, that's a useful sighting point, is, I think Stu's just highlighting that with the cursor there. It's the furthest left. It's pretty obvious. Yep. Transition 1, you'll exit up the old cobbled slipway. You'll dib. Our plan this year is to have 2 lanes. Normally we just have 1. This year we're going to have 2 lanes for exiting the water. That should hopefully allow us to spread the load and prevent, to a large degree, queues building up. So just follow the directions of marshals. You'll end up in one lane or the other. They all end up in exactly the same. They both end up in exactly the same place. There'll be a dibber box at the end of each of those lanes. So you'll be able to dib or dib. Bear in mind that you've probably stashed your dibber underneath your wetsuit sleeve. So fish it out on the way up the slipway. That'll just stop you kind of panicking and losing time. Because what then happens is that you're stood there by the dibber box, kind of, scrabbling around for your dibber. A queue is now forming behind you. We're trying to avoid queues. We're trying to avoid groups of people at all times. So help us by kind of having that ready for when you get to the top of the slipway. Our default position this year is that we won't be able to help you out of the water. So you'll exit the water onto the slipway, the old slipway, and up the mats yourself. That's the default position. So expect that. Anything more than that we can do is a bonus, but expect that to be our default position. You'll come up to the top of the slipway, you'll turn left, you'll go into transition. Transition will work perfectly normally. The mount line is at the far end of transition near the cattle grid, and there'll be another dibber box that you'll need to use at that point. So please push your bike through transition, helmet on, normal triathlon rules, mount at the mount line, and you're away. We'll just talk about spectators just for a moment here as well. I mean, just
before you say that, Paul, just a reminder that the first bit, after you get on your bike, you're going straight up a hill. So don't leave your bike in a big gear.
No, we don't tell them that, John.
Yeah, that makes it's great fun for it. It's great fun for the crew.
It's really funny for us, but not for you.
So here's the thing. This is one of the changes that's kind of like an unfortunate, sad change this year. Swim Exit T1 is a really great spectator experience normally. This year, we're just going to have to scale that back as far as we can. We would encourage spectators to not be there, just because it gives us a crowd that we've then got to manage. It's all very visible and very public, and the fewer people we have in that area, the easier all that becomes for us. So we would strongly encourage you not to spectate. So athlete support only if you possibly can, please. In transition itself, it's only athlete and support, and we'll ID the support because they'll be wearing the race supporters t-shirt. We don't want anybody else in transition. Anybody else in transition will be unceremoniously turfed out, possibly by me. There you go. That's scary. Okay, I'm done.
I'll put the canned laughter in there, Paul.
We were going to do that, weren't we? We were
Oh,
going
I
to
will
put
do
canned
that. Don't
laughter
worry.
on
Don't
this.
worry.
Oh, excellent. Good. Okay, cool.
Okay, good. Okay, on to the bike course. And as John says, when you leave transition, you do go straight up a very steep hill. So it is useful to leave your bike in a low gear in transition, or there'll be lots of crunching of gears under load, which we know is not a good thing. I would like to say, first of all, that this year we have a new sponsor. We have an official bike course sponsor, Cervelo, an amazing bike brand. And it's really nice to have them on board. So welcome to CELTMAN Cervelo. Hope we have you for a number of years. So this is the bike course. And those of you who are not familiar with my same joke every year, if you get lost, you're a moron.
This is why we've got the canned laughter.
We don't need that. Effectively, there are very, very few turns in this race. I wonder if you can see my cursor here. You leave from Shield Egg, and then you go along the coast road to Kinlochhew, which is where it says Fasag here. Sorry, beg your pardon, to Torridon. Now, between Torridon and Kinlochhew is a single track road. It's about 10 miles long, 16k long. This is probably the most dangerous part of the road in the morning because there will be many bikes and many cars on it. So bikes will be traveling at a similar speed to cars, so you don't necessarily have to overtake each other, but if cars have to pass bikes, please do it very carefully. The road is narrow. If bikes have to pass cars, please do it very carefully. The road is narrow. But don't draft cars, and just take it easy. Relax on that section. The stress will disappear once you take the left turn at Kinlochhew. The road opens up. It's very, very wide and open all the way around the entire course. To here, where you take the next turn, which is a right turn onto the A835. Now, this A835 comes from Ullapool. It's a main road. The national speed limit in the UK, you're all from the UK this time, is of course 60 miles an hour, in theory. So traffic does come from the left-hand side here, 70, 80 miles an hour. It is possible. We do have warning signs, but you do have a left-hand turn approximately 100 meters from the junction. So you need to stop and you need to listen and you need to look before you move out across that road. An athlete sent us an email recently and said, do we actually have to stop if there's no car coming? Yes, you do. You have to stop there 100%. And then make sure the road's clear. You have a clear line of sight to the right, but you don't have a clear line of sight for more than 100 meters to the left. Then you come all the way down the main road, which may be busy with traffic, but it's a wide road, so just be aware of that, until you get to Garve, and then you take your second right-hand turn. Again, this is a right-hand turn you need to be aware of because the traffic's moving quickly. Then you follow this road all the way to Achnasheen. There's a little roundabout here. You go, there's a debate over whether you go straight on or you go right. If I say you go right, you can't go wrong. It's like a little poem. So follow that, and then you end up back down in Kinlochhew for transition 2.
Is it worth saying that's a long descent down into Kinlochhew, Stu, and very scenic?
Very scenic and very, very fast. Yes, that's a good point. As you descend into Kinlochhew, it's kind of one of the famous scenes you see from North Coast 500, even though it's not on the North Coast 500, it's the scene that they use looking down to Loch Marie from the top of the hill. It's an incredibly fast descent, and there's a cattle grid at the bottom of it. So just be aware that don't come into the village or across the cattle grid at ridiculous speeds.
It's what's your cattle grid advice?
Yeah, well, the cattle grid's just coming. Also I forgot to mention that there are cattle grids in this first section. And in fact, at various points around the course, there are cattle grids. If you haven't gone over a cattle grid before, the best way to do it is commit to it. Straight on, fast, don't panic. And if it's dry, that's fine. If it's wet, take extra care because you can slide sideways. If you don't like the idea of going over the cattle grid, there's always a gate to the side. You can dismount, go through the gate and get back on the other side. But just be safe on the cattle grids. So I have to move me out of the way here. Basic overview of the bike course. The first section in Kinlochhew, as we mentioned, it's very busy and the most dangerous part. That's actually a no support zone, and we will have signs up saying that that's a no support zone. You don't need support from your support crew at that point. It's too close to the start. So we ask that you do not stop and support the athlete for any food reasons or clothing reasons there. If they have a mechanical, then of course you can assist them, but try and find somewhere to park. There's not many places you can. Petrol and diesel is not ubiquitous in the Highlands of Scotland, so please make sure that your tank is full before race day. There are a number of stations on the course, but we cannot guarantee they'll be open. The Gairloch 24-hour station is automatic, so it will be open, but it's automatic, so it sometimes doesn't work. So the best thing to do is just make sure you have fuel in your car. Traffic, passing places. Actually, we have a leaflet we can issue. Do we still have some of those leaflets?
I think we have, yeah. So we'll stick those in registration packs.
In terms of how to use the passing places properly. As I mentioned earlier, there's no hand-ups or tailing or filming from cars. That's not allowed. The right turns we've already gone over. There's also one turn we like to call Alex Glasgow Memorial Corner. He's not dead yet, which is up here on this top coast. So there's at the bottom of a long descent. It's the famous photograph you'll have seen. In fact, it's this photograph here. You come round to Gruinard Bay. There's an amazing view of Gruinard Bay there, and you immediately start to descend down a very, very fast descent. At the bottom of this descent it's not obvious from the map, but there's a sharp left-hand turn. And you need to be going slower than down the hill speed to take that bend, or you'll end up on the wrong side of the road into opposing traffic. So please be very, very careful, or we'll have to rename it. Villages, be sensible, support crews as well, adhere to the speed limits, don't annoy the locals, drive safely, sensibly at all times. There is a lot of other traffic on this road nowadays because of the North Coast 500. Drafting and pacing, as we say, is not allowed. We have motorcycle marshals who will be, and also our own race vehicles will be patrolling, so we will be watching out for antisocial driving, speeding, silly behaviour. We don't tolerate that. And this is what our support community collective police force means. It's a mouthful to say that we expect that all of our support crews and all of our athletes work as a collective. So they look out for each other, but they also grass on each other. And I don't mean that in a bad way. If you see a support crew acting irresponsibly, the numbers on the back, call us and report them, please. Don't take it into your own hands, but please let us know what you've seen, and we'll take action. And other road users, as I'll come on to into a second. And no disrespect to anyone who likes to pretend they're Clarkson, Hammond and May and batter around the North Coast 500 in 3 old sports cars, but it's a little bit of a problem for us, this, because it's quite a common thing to do. So please be aware of other traffic. You're going to slow down the traffic at certain points where there's crunch points in the race. And you will find that there are people who've decided they're going to go around the North Coast 500 in 24 hours and they want to get past, and they may be antisocial. So just watch out for them. We have a name for them. I'm not going to say what it is. You can probably see it on the screen. And then even worse, you know, years ago, I used to start with this slide and say, look out for the guys in sports cars. In reality, they're not the problem on the North Coast 500. And anyone who pays attention to the CELTMAN forum will know I have a little bit of a bee in my bonnet about camper vans. And it's not really about the people who drive camper vans or the camping or anything like that. It's the size of them. They take up so much space, and there are so many of them, and the roads are so small. As time has gone on, the increase in camper vans has caused us a number of problems with bottlenecks and parking and lay-by space being taken up and that sort of stuff. So again, beware of camper vans. Beware of them passing you, because they can't give you much space to get past. And also, if you have a camper van as a support vehicle, which we recommend you do not have, but we can't ban that at the moment, you may be asked to park further from transition zones than people in smaller vehicles. So maybe a little bit more of an inconvenience for you. That's not personal, it's just because we have no space to put you where we want to put you, in a ditch or the sea. So because of the traffic and because of the camper vans and because of the increase in tourism in the area, we have had to make a number of changes to Transition 2 over the years. As those of you know who've been to CELTMAN in previous years, we used to be in a place called Achnaschellack. We had to move from there due to traffic problems to Kinlochewe. Now in Kinlochewe, we can just about manage the traffic flow, but it's become very, very difficult to park all the vehicles. So we have good contact with the owners of Cronasig Croft here, and they've allowed us to use their field for parking. So this is what we're going to do this year. The transition 2 area is where it was before, at the back of the village hall and the cafe in Kinlochewe. So cyclists will come into the village, take a left turn, dismount, and enter the transition area. Vehicles will go straight past transition 2, 1 kilometre up the road, and they will be marshalled into the parking spot. You must proceed directly to the parking area. Do not stop here to drop something off. We're not interested in, oh, but I'll just be a minute. Oh, but no, it's not allowed, unfortunately. And if you do stop, or if you argue with marshals, we're going to add 10 minutes to your athlete's time. We don't want to do that. So please move forward to the parking area. And this is where you will park. Then collect the kit you need for the athlete and walk back to the transition. It's 1 kilometre. It's not a big deal during a day like CELTMAN. So again, when you're walking back on the road, be aware of runners and other vehicles that will be moving on that road. It's very small. Once you've done the transition, the athlete's got a good 17K, I think, to run to T2A. So that gives you a bit of time because it only takes you about 10 to 15 minutes to drive there. And again, we can't have vehicles stopping there. So in order to prevent you standing about in T2A for too long, then hang about in Kinlochewe for a bit. There are 3 cafes there, so go and get a coffee, something to eat, and spend some time there. I hope that is clear. Send email information, questions, whatever, if it's not. Right, this is the big change, because Kinlochewe is just a new car park. T2A is a whole change to our traffic procedure. So when you get to T2A, which is the little area of trees on the right-hand side of the road, you'll see our tents and our race vehicles there. It's the mountain safety checkpoint. If you have more than 1 person in your car, you can stop for, we say 5 minutes. Actually, we want it to be a maximum of 5 minutes. Please be as quick as possible. Drop off your runner, drop off the kit. There's no spectating there this year. It's not allowed. No parking on the road other than to stop for that short period of time. Only park on one side of the road, the left-hand side. Follow the marshal's instructions. Do not ever park on both sides. Don't turn around either. Keep your car pointed towards Torridon at all times. If you're a single crew, you proceed to car park T2B, which is 2 kilometres down the road. That'll be obviously marked for you, and that's where you'll park with your single crew sticker. And then you can walk back to T2A. All other cars, after they've dropped off the runner and the kit, you proceed to Torridon to park at the finish line. At T2A, we'll also carry out a medical visual evaluation on the athlete, just to check that we think they're healthy and ready to go up the mountain. John, in fact, John, you want to take over here because this is your department.
I work closely with the Mountain Rescue at this point. The Mountain Rescue team have a communication vehicle, and they normally have a medical person with us. That if we feel, and having chatted to lots and lots of athletes, it's fairly obvious sometimes that people are not at their best, and we will then do a short evaluation, just checking that everything's okay before we allow anybody to go onto the mountain. And if we feel that the person is beyond the situation that it would be safe for them to go, then we'll ask them not to go. So please accept that as a safety issue. It's not something that we do lightly. And I think over the history of the race, I think we've only ever asked 2 people not to go on the mountain for medical reasons. So it's a safety thing. We then will carry a mandatory kit check. And again, like we do for registration, we'll ask you to empty your bag, show us some stuff, and then put it back in the bag. It's a 2-minute stop. Everybody has a 2-minute stop. The clock basically is stopped for you during that period. So it's not as if you're continuing and under pressure to get somewhere else. The 2-minute slot is there. So, come in, dib in, as you would normally do with the other dibbers. You'll also be given a ticket, a wristband for your supporter to take with them, with which will have the time that you left T2A on, the actual time. So if it's 16:40 or whatever time it is, that's the number it'll be. It might not be 16, it'll be 15:40. As you go up the mountain, the person at the top of the ridge will look at that time and they'll calculate 1 hour 45. And if it's beyond that time, they'll, as Paul suggested earlier, they will ask you to come back down. But it's very much a safety thing. If you go further onto the ridge, then there isn't a way out that's not going to take a long time for you to get through. And 1 hour 45 for that section is a very slow walk. Mandatory kit is in the manual, and we reiterate it every year. Electronic devices are not acceptable. If you want to take an electronic device, please feel free to do so, but we can't depend on the battery life of anything. And especially in an area where there is limited mobile coverage, it drains batteries much, much quicker than if you're in an area that's got lots of mobile coverage. So a map and compass is essential. We'll give you the map, and compass is something that you should have, and you should be able to understand how to use it. You know, north, south, east, and west is fairly obvious, and the ridge is in a generally a straightforward direction that you can follow on the map. And if necessary, you may need to be able to use a compass to get you from point A to point B. So please have a quick read of stuff that Ordnance Survey give you. There's lots of free material out there that will help you if you're not comfortable. Waterproofs are in Scotland essential, and it's not just any old bin bag type waterproof. Please, think about your safety on the mountain. If you have to stop for any reason, injury-wise or otherwise, where you have to stop and be still for a period of time, you get cold very, very quickly. So having good quality waterproof and the thermal layers is essential for that part. And that's why we insist on it. It's not because we think it's a good thing, we think it's an annoying thing to have a big full bag. It's not. It's about what's essential for you to be on the mountain. So I'm not going to go through everything that's on that list, but essential things are waterproofs, thermals, map and compass, and all the other stuff. Head torch, make sure the batteries work. And it's sometimes worthwhile taking extra batteries just as an addition. For the vast majority of people, you'll be off the mountain before it gets dark. But for a few people, it might not be. So make sure your head torch is one that allows you to see stuff, and it's just not a little pen light. Yep. And I'll pass on to Paul, who's going to talk through just the high route issues.
Yeah, we'll give you a map, as John said, that will have both the high route and the low route on it. And I'm sure you're all aware by now that the defining thing about whether you do the high or the low is what time you reach and pass through T2A. The high route is illustrated there. It's fairly easily navigable. Stiff climb, and then you're following the ridge. You go to the trig point on Spidia and Cornanglach, and then an out and back to Ruistack Moor. Then comes probably the defining moment of CELTMAN, and certainly the defining kind of hazard of CELTMAN, and that is the famous scree descent. There's a photograph, I think, coming of it in a second, but it's a steep, blocky, rocky descent down towards the corrie, to the little loch in there. It's loose. It's filled with scree. Just take it super easy, please. Take it super easy. If it's going to go wrong anywhere on this race, it's going to go wrong for you there. Take it super easy. It would be such a horrible shame for things to go wrong there, and also a bit of a nightmare to extract you from there as well, if we're being honest. The best route down, and actually the route that Natural Scotland wants us to take, is to the right-hand side. So as you're descending on the right-hand side, it's like a big, blocky, rocky staircase, and that's where we'd like you to go. From the end of the Lochen, there is a path. However, don't be fooled. You can't switch off at that point. The opportunities for catching your toe on something and going the length of yourself on that path are really, really high. You can't relax on this course until quite a lot later on down the line. So just because you've reached that kind of clearly made path, don't turn off. Seriously, don't turn off. It's rough up on the route. I mean, it is following a line, but it's, you know, this usually applies more to kind of folks that kind of come to us from the continent and from other places in the world. You know, when we say there's a path, this is not a made-up path with markers and, you know, handrails. That's not what it looks like up there. It's basically slightly different coloured stones, and that is the ridge path. It's very easily navigated with visibility, but when the mist comes down, which it does, that map and compass that John talked about earlier on, you'll find that really, really handy. So yeah, it's hazardous up there. It's rough, it's rocky, it's steep. It's all those good fun things. We may, and we have done in the past, cut the high course entirely. We may decide, and this is a decision driven by Mountain Rescue, who know this place better than anybody else. So we allow, they make that decision for us, really. And when they've made that decision, no argument. So we will, in poor weather conditions, we will either cut the high course completely and everybody will do the low course, or in kind of slightly intermediate conditions, we might allow the first handful or the first number of runners up onto the high route, and everybody else will divert onto the low route. Poles are permitted should you wish to use them. Support rules, you must stay together, and by together we mean communicating distance, talking distance. So that's not 50 meters away, certainly not when the wind is blowing. That's within a few meters of each other. And you can't carry kit, i.e. the athlete has to carry their mandatory kit, the support runner has to carry their mandatory kit. You can't split kit and carry kit across. Sorry. So for example, we can't have the support runner carrying the athlete's kit. And that's a safety thing. It's also a fairness thing, but it's primarily a safety thing. You know, in the mist, you get separated. We suddenly got one person who's got all the kit and one person who's got none of the kit, and that's not cool. There are marshal and mountain rescue points dotted along the ridge, so you will encounter our hill safety teams at various points along the way. So there you go. You can see that's the scree chute there, and you can see, is that McLeod? It is McLeod.
That is the famous Stuart McLeod, yes.
Of the clan McLeod coming down the scree chute. You can see where his right hand is. But actually, he's on the blocky section there. So it looks like this big, massive kind of stone staircase. And that's really where we want you to be, rather than down the loose scree stuff in the middle. That's the low route. So that's the one that kicks in after the cutoff. You'll run down from T2A, you'll run down the road for a couple of K. You'll go to the place that we call T2B, which is where the single crew cars will have been parked. And then you'll pick up the mountain track from there. We call it the low route. We don't call it the easy route. There's a very good reason for that. It ain't easy. This is a really, really tough challenge all in itself. You're in proper wild country. It's a rough path. It's wet. And it feels properly out there. This is not in any way, shape or form an easy option. We call it the low route, not the easy route, for a good reason. And you'll finish up at the hall. Finish line, we're just going to need to manage this a bit heavier than we have done in previous years, again, because we need to keep numbers to a minimum. This is another of those places like swim exit that we keep spectators to an absolute minimum, please. You know, we do understand that friends and family are going to want to see you finish. Of course they are. This is a massive day and a massive achievement for you. And of course they're going to want to be involved in that. Please, where you can, keep that to a minimum. Please, anybody who is there, athletes, supporters, spectators, family, social distancing rules apply absolutely at the finish line, 2 meters apart, all that kind of stuff. And please, you know, don't hang around, depart as quickly as you can. We love the kind of the social atmosphere that normally builds up around the finish. It's one of the highlights of my day. It's going to be really hard this year. We can't do it. So please, you know, finish, do what you need to do, and disperse as quickly as you possibly can, please. Again, we're in the public eye here. We're one of the first big events that's back in Scotland. And so we are being watched, and we need to kind of do the things that we need to do. We need to follow the guidelines, and this is one of those things. So yeah, please just do all that stuff. The buffet will be slightly different this year. As we mentioned earlier, it will be athlete and one support runner only. And we're not quite sure of the format of this yet. Probably the way that it will work is that there'll be a one-way system within the hall. in, pick up your food, eat, and then leave. So spending as little time in the hall as we possibly can. We need that to happen so we can kind of keep the flow through the hall. It's a really busy, warm, humid, damp, perfect COVID breeding ground space in normal years. We need to avoid that this year. So it'll be a kind of a relatively small numbers of people and a constant move through. If we feel we can't manage that or the guidance doesn't allow it, we will be offering the food as a takeaway service from one of the doors that exits the hall. Finish location is outside the hall in its usual place, right outside the hall there. Timing chips and download. So your timing chip this year will be on an elasticated band. We'll ask you to take that off yourself and drop it in a bucket. We will collect those periodically and we'll then do the download. We're not going to be issuing the paper tickets this year because that just introduces more contact points and more handling of equipment. So we're not going to do that. So just take your chip off, drop it in a bucket. We'll look after it from there on in. Same with your GPS device, drop it in a bucket and we'll pick it up. There'll be marshals at the finish line that will look after that. Sweaty hugs with Paul, Stu and John at the finish line. Much as we love them sometimes, not this year, please. We'll catch up on all that again next year for fairly obvious reasons. Here's a really
important
important
not just get
one.
rid of that forever.
Oh, I quite like it. I quite like a sweaty hug.
Okay.
Ticks. Many of you will be familiar, some may not. Ticks, tiny little insects. They live on vegetation typically, and they will take any opportunity they can to jump on you and bury their head in your skin. Yum, yum. They're nasty wee buggers because they can carry various particularly unpleasant diseases, including a form of encephalitis, which is really serious. So have a check for them. Check each other. That's kind of fun if you get it right, because they do find themselves into some interesting places. Check each other post-finish. Little tiny black dots, generally, size of a pinhead, up to 2 or 3 mil across, something like that. And they can get everywhere, including kind of into your scalp, under your hair, and it also, even when you've kind of had clothing cover, they can worm their way in. They're incredible. They need to be removed, but they need to be removed properly. If that happens around the finish area, come and find us. Our first aid team will be able to help you with that. If you find them later on in the day, use a tick removal tool. There are kind of these kind of nice plastic forks that kind of get in under the body and lift it out. Tweezers are a bad idea because you end up squishing the tick and it kind of injects what's inside the tick back into you. Not cool. So get them removed properly. And all that stuff about kind of, smothering them in Vaseline doesn't work. All that kind of, covering them up doesn't work. It needs to be properly removed. Keep an eye on it. There is a classic kind of symptom of an infected tick bite. You end up with kind of something that looks a bit like a bullseye, red and white circles around the point that the tick has been in. If that happens, go and see your GP. Seek medical advice at that point. Okay.
Okay, post-race. Now that you've all had a good night's sleep the next day, those of you who've been there before know that we have this wonderful T-shirt ceremony in the hall, and obviously we can't do that. So the plan for the T-shirt ceremony will be to do it somewhere around about the hall, likely outside. We don't know the exact location yet, but it will be obvious when you come to Torridon the next day where we are and what we're doing. The photograph, again, we'll have to do some sort of special version of that, but we will manage to do something. And the brunch will probably be a little bit like the buffet the night before. Again, the format is not finalized yet, but it's quite likely to be a takeaway. And usually we have bacon and egg rolls and other local delicacies. Bacon and egg roll, bacon roll. That's how it works. And then the shop, if we're able to have a pop-up shop, then we have some items, if we have any left, that you can purchase of our merchandise, and then obviously safety driving home. The road, the A9 south from Inverness is quite a dangerous road, so please be careful on your way back.
And it also is almost fully covered by traffic cameras now for average speed. So if you want to get a speeding ticket, feel free, but it's sensible to drive a bit within your capabilities after having burst
Well, there's
yourself
always a
for day.
camper van in front of you, John, so it's fine. You can't go fast. And something very important, let me move this little graphic out of the way here, if I can find a place for it. The Extra World Tour, which obviously CELTMAN is part of, which leads to the Norseman and the Extra World Championship. We are a qualifying race for the World Championship, which is now Norseman. It is the same thing. So we offer 2 male slots, 2 female slots for the people who win first and second. You automatically get a slot for Norseman. And then we also offer 8 randomized slots. So we will raffle any finisher, white or blue t-shirt, for 4 slots for the Norseman for males and 4 for females. And it's a great way to get into that race because the ballot they have is so difficult to get through now that doing it this way is a great opportunity. So good luck from all of us, all 3 of us.
Yeah, we'll see you in sunny Torridon.
Look forward to meeting you up there in person. It's super exciting, Stu, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
super
just
exciting.
not. We should just really bury this super thing altogether. You've said, hey guys, and you've said super. It's just, this isn't YouTube. This is a briefing.